All right, so fun news. If you don't have the class that Ben is teaching later today, who knows that Ben is teaching today? Anybody? Okay, I see a few hands. The rest of the people got to get with the program. He is, not only is he teaching, he has a really amazing author, Tom Wheelwright. It's his personal financial coach. I think it's Brandon, you know what he's teaching? 7 investments that the government.
7 investments the government will pay you to make.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. I would definitely jump on. It's at 1:30 today, Central Time. I mean, if you can't find a link, somebody can post the link in the chat. So that's happening. And then tomorrow, Ben is actually hosting the all partner call because Chris is out of town. So you get Ben 2 days in a row. I probably wouldn't miss it. Pretty good stuff. So let's start with gratitude, shout outs, any of that stuff. What's going on in your world? Who do you want to shout out? I'll let you find your little button to raise your hand. And meanwhile, I'm going to shout out Jose Rodriguez in Austin. He bought his first house this week. He closed on it, first of many, knowing his goals. He just started with us last year, so that's pretty exciting. And then I wanted to shout out Alyssa in Austin. She actually took a listing, $495,000 listing, and it was from calling the team's old leads, when she started. And it was a 2019 lead, and she turned that lead. So I thought that was really cool. So those are my shout outs. Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah, I'd like to send a shout out to Christian.
He's just a great guy, and we really appreciate him being on the team. So I want to send a shout out to him, and he just a good guy. So welcome, guy.
I love that. I love that. Well, congrats on seeing who he is, right? And seeing him for all his potential. I love that. You're always such a good team player, Anthony. Jaime, I saw your hand. I'll let you go ahead. I know you guys are good.
So, I want to give a shout out to another one of our team members, Esther Gomez again. And this week we actually had a really, really good problem. We had to scramble to find more lock boxes. And our association limits us to 2 per person. So therefore we had to get 2 and multiple agents' names on our team and then transfer them over. But anyway, thank you, Joseph, for taking that. But Esther Gomez has 3 listings that are coming up. And what people don't realize about Esther, because I know I give her a shout out a lot, is that she's working a full-time job on the side. She's a general manager for a floral company, 40 hours a week, 40 plus hours, and she is just rocking it. So Esther, I'm so proud of you.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. If anybody else has anything, this is the time. Otherwise, I'm going to go on because this morning we've got some good guests. Okay. I feel like you guys have everything you want to say. Done. Okay. So this morning, I thought the last time we really heard from some of our Texas partners was right around this time last year. And I thought, gosh, let's bring that back. So this morning I've got Brandon and Sarissa and Laura sharing with us. And the reason that I wanted them to share with us, I also wanted Jordan to share with us, but she's at a workshop with her coach. And so she's going to share a different time. But these 3 in particular, they have led their team to $1 million or more in closed GCI and pending GCI this year, between 1 and 2 million, which is a really big deal, guys, especially in this shifting market. They've been in the business 7, 10, 12, 15 years. So they've seen all of the different market swings, if you will. And so I'm really excited this morning to just hear from them. Essentially, it was, what is it that you would want to share? And it's going to be all over the board. So what I would do this morning is I'd grab my sheet of paper, or I'd grab my Google Notes, or whatever, however you take notes. And the goal of today is take down maybe 1 or 2 things that you're going to implement. Otherwise, this was all just entertainment, and we all love to see each other, but learning for the sake of earning is the goal, right? So I'm gonna grab, let's see, Laura, I'm gonna spotlight you, and then I'm gonna spotlight Brandon. Oh, this is actually harder than it looks to try to spotlight a bunch of people. Sorry, Laura, you're gonna be on here for a little while. while I figure out Mr. Brandon. And then I'm going to spotlight Miss Sarissa as well. So then that way you can see everyone at the same time. And it's so much more exciting. All right. And Adelina. Okay, awesome. So Brandon, you're probably my most word conscious person. So I want to start with you. You've been in the business now, how many years?
6.5 years.
6.5 years, okay. And when you started, the market was doing pretty good, decent. What was it like?
Yeah, when I started in Austin with you, it was already a seller's market, not as hyper as what we've seen in the last couple of years, but it was already pretty competitive, pretty busy.
Okay, awesome. So with all of that, we are in a new market. What would you say, or what would you coach us on this morning? You've got, 73 people on so far. What would you want to say to them?
Well, first off, I read Simply Said, so this should be short. No promises though. I hope everybody's taking what's going on in the market this year as opportunity, because that's how we're focused on it here in San Antonio. And with the inventory increasing, there's more opportunity than I think we've seen in the last few years. And so we've been getting beaten up with driving so many buyers around and showing them houses and things like that. So what we're focused on right now is getting our buyers off the fence who might have been on the fence or gotten completely out of the market because their FHA or VA contracts we couldn't get them competitive enough to win. That was just the nature of the market. And so we're spending some time digging back through our database and talking to old clients. Maybe we've already taken them out to show properties and they got out of the market, or they were thinking about it, but just didn't get in there after we explained to them at the consultation what the market looked like. So we're circling back to those people to give them the opportunity that they now sit in. Right. And we're trying to be as positive and influential as possible with the message that we're getting from Place and Goldman Sachs, boots on the ground info that we cover at PowerUp. But there is opportunity right now, so one of our buyers this week was FHA, what else? Down payment assistance, things like that. Wasn't even competing, got a house that 2 months ago they would have, been at the bottom of 25 offers. And so we want to make sure that we're telling the right message, the accurate message, and not the scary message that we're seeing on social media, CNN, Fox, all that stuff.
Like, can you tell us what that script would sound like?
Yeah.
I'm aware that so just to give you guys an idea, 70% of all agents in Austin have only been licensed less than 2 years. Right? Or 3 years, sorry, less than 3 years. So 70%. So what is, for everyone who's been licensed less than 3 years, what does a script like that sound?
Yeah. So it's, simple as, hey, Adelina, it's Brandon. I just wanted to follow up with you to see how you're doing. So this is like a Sphere follow-up call, right? And then it's, hey, I wanted to catch up with you. We're midsummer and I have great news. I'm sure you've heard on the news that the market's changing, but interest rates have started to come back down a bit. But the reason I'm calling you is because when we were looking at homes back in February and March, it was super competitive. And I know you want to take advantage of FHA, and we've had buyers recently go under contract in FHA without competing in multiple offers. So would you consider making a move sooner than what we last talked about? Right. And what that's usually leading to is a conversation like, what do you mean the market's changed? And now we get to be consultatory do the consultation and help them let the stats tell the story. Right.
Okay. Got it.
That's on the buy side, right? We're also still trying to double down on cash options like Homeward. Those are even more powerful now, right? Instead of competing with 10 people, you're competing with maybe 2 in some of the areas that we have here in San Antonio. So we're using that and trying to leverage that back in as an option. What I've heard from our agents recently, because we do a lot of expired calls and things like that, is that's really, setting the tone for sellers to consider making the move and not waiting. On the sell side, pricing. We've been talking about pricing for a while now, since the market started to shift about 45 to 60 days ago. Pricing is going to be paramount because, like someone said on one of the last calls, we can't get away with, and the sellers can't get away with in some of these neighborhoods now, pricing for September, pricing for October, right? Kind of taking advantage of how scarce the inventory was. We've seen some neighborhoods where inventory's doubled or tripled in the last week or two, or last month or two, and you just can't price that way. So we're starting to see price changes and things like that. So what we're trying to do is we're having conversations with our clients before listing, the same one we'd always have, but also sharing the stats with them and making sure that they understand like, hey, half of the inventory in your neighborhood just did a price reduction this week. 2 months ago, you could have priced ahead. The best way to do that now is going to be to price as competitively as possible. So you're not competing with these people who are overpricing their house, right? On top of that, we have started to see, concessions, bonus offerings, and things like that. We've seen it, and we're also doing it on our listings now because the inventory's just shot up quickly. And then we've seen a year-over-year increase in expireds. So we're refocusing our lead gen endeavors to add some more expired time in there to take listings.
Right now, as you're thinking about this with your agents, when it comes to setting up their day, right? Because conversion has changed, right? When the market shifts, conversion tactics have to shift. Are you seeing anything different for that? Anything that you would recommend?
Well, something we're pretty grateful for is back in March or April, we changed our team standard for minimum conversations per week from 50 to 100. So we had kind of already, luckily been future pacing for whatever was going to happen. So that kind of took place March, April, May. But where I've seen the most changes in agent schedules as we go through coaching is adding back in expireds. We were only at 10 a day, 2 a day, maybe 100 a month, 200 at the most. And that's for a gigantic area. Now we already have 150 just as of yesterday. And so what I've seen is we're focusing back into some right now business. The other thing, and I should have gave a gratitude and shout out to the team for this, everybody stepped their game up to open houses. We made a conscious effort to talk about that the last month and a half. How do we get in front of right now buyers who are still willing to pay these interest rates? And it's been open houses. So Ray, he's in his last week of launch, got his first client cash off of an open house. We had a few other agents pull some buyers off of open houses recently. Those people don't care about the interest rates, or they wouldn't be out driving in 107-degree temperatures, right? To go look at how they can look online at that point, right? Like I don't want to be outside at 107 degrees. So that's changing the schedule. So the rhythm, because school's out, summer, things like that. If you're not doing any open houses, make an effort if you're trying to grow your business and behind on your goals or right on point to add one. If you're already doing one, get back on model and do 2. And if you're doing 2 and you're killing it, you must love open houses and you're probably converting, do 3. And it's made a difference.
I love that.
I love hearing about the wins on Tuesdays. We do our team meetings on Tuesdays now, and we're sharing those open house wins. And there's people are out there, they want to buy, and now we have more inventory than we've ever had. Why not, right? Put those 2 things together. That's how we're approaching it. It's just everyone could win right now.
Okay, like everyone should write that down. Everyone can win right now, and then I would write down, how do we get in front of buyers who are willing to pay the interest rates of today? They're going to open houses because it is 170 degrees out there. And then add in expireds and withdrawals if you haven't, back into your lead gen day in the life of your business. I love that. Brandon, you're awesome. You did read Simply Said. That was the simplest said I think I've ever heard. Really, really awesome. Thank you so much. Laura, I'm gonna go to you. Midland, how is the Midland market right now? How does it compare? Are you guys the same or different from like 6 months ago?
It's different for us. It's a little bit slower than it has been for everyone else in the nation, it seems. And so for us, things are just sitting a little bit longer. It seems like our market reacted a lot faster to what the feds were trying to do, which was slow it down a bit. But we are a long ways away from being a buyer's market. I mean, it's just nowhere near.
How are you defining a buyer's market for everyone who is wondering?
Well, typically a buyer's market is defined by month supply of inventory, and anytime we get over 6 months supply of inventory, that's when we can start thinking that we're shifting toward a buyer market, where 6 month is a balanced market, but anything over that, and we're starting to move toward that, we're at like 2. So it's not, it's a long way before we get there.
Wow, so like the sky is not falling?
No, actually, as much as people would like to make us believe that it is, it's absolutely not falling.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so take us back. Remind us when you got licensed so we have a frame of reference.
Yeah, I got my real estate license in 2008, and I was in Lubbock, Texas. It was more of a buyer's market back then, especially because Lubbock is a college town, so it behaves a little bit differently, but it was very much a buyer's market back then. I learned to work in a market where we did get to negotiate for closing cost. We did get to offer 5-10% below market value or asking price. And that's a good set of skills to have. And I haven't gotten to use it much since then.
Got it. So you got started in a really great market called the downturn. What would you, based on that kind of experience, what would you coach our agents on today? Like what's on your mind?
Well, one of the things that I know that I feel very blessed about starting in that kind of market is that a lot of agents were getting out of the business around that time, because most people do not have the skill set that it takes to survive a shifting market, a downshifting market. A lot of people get really excited about getting into real estate because they see how great it's going, how great everybody else is doing. And they never learn the skill set that it actually takes to make it through that shift. So there's a lot of market share that can be had during this downturn.
I love that. What do you guys, are there any tools or anything that you guys are using, or what would you say, like, as far as what can we do right now? Like what are
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been pounding in Midland is just learning to use the mortgage calculator to our advantage. And so that's something that I've been, I kid you not, probably for the past 6 weeks, we've talked about it at least once in Power Up every week, just because I feel it's that important to be able to help your clients see it rather than just say it to them. So what we're having our clients do, if you don't mind, I'll role play with you.
I love that. Yeah, I was gonna ask first. I'm glad you're going for it.
So it would sound something like this, because one of the objections we are getting a lot is, well, we're thinking we're just going to hold off with everything that's going on. The housing market's supposed to crash, and houses are going to tank, and we're just going to wait until that happens. And so if you were saying that to me, I would say, well, thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate that input. And just out of curiosity, where are you getting the data that's telling you that the market's going to crash? And
it's on the news everywhere, actually.
okay, great. And just based on what you're hearing, how much of a crash do you expect? Do you expect housing prices to go down 5%, 10%, 20%? What is it that you're expecting?
That's a great question. I like that question. I would say 10%.
10%?
Yeah, I think it's overvalued. Yeah.
Adelina, can I share a graph with you about what's been happening for the last maybe 50 years of real estate ups and downs?
Yeah.
And I use the graph that Chris and Ben gave us a while back, that has I think it has the last 20 years, but regardless. So if you can see in this graph, for the last 20 years, we have not seen a significant enough decrease. If you see, we've had little bits where the market goes down a little bit from month to month, but for the past 20 years, we've not had a consecutive 3-month drop bad enough to mean anything to you. And I'm not saying that you're wrong or that anyone predicting this supposed crash is wrong. Of course, there are people that are way smarter than me out there. I'm just going based on historical data. So there is no data historically to support that claim. But even if it were, let's work through some things together. Adelina, do you remember that app that I sent you a while back for mortgage calculator?
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to
The
find.
Place one. Would you do me a favor and pull it up?
Yeah, what's it called?
It's called Place.
Place Mortgage?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've got it.
Okay, so we've been shopping, you and I have been shopping in the $500,000 range. So let's go ahead, and when you got pre-approved, if I don't remember incorrectly, you got pre-approved at 4.5. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was a good interest rate.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are at 6.5-ish, roughly in there. So let's plug those numbers in real quick. Plug in 500,000 with 20% down at 4.5 for 30 years. And just tell me what your principal and interest would be on that.
All right, so at 400,000,
500,000.
500,000. All right, I like that. Awesome. At 4.5,
Yes,
awesome. And what kind of down payment?
20%. I think that's what you had said you were going to put. Yeah.
So my mortgage payment would have been 2568.
What about just principal and interest, Adelina?
Oh, good question.
There's just a little down arrow right under there.
2027.
So 2027 is what your principal and interest payment would be. Now, do me a favor, go back and change only your interest rate to today's rate. So 6.5, just to make it easy.
So my principal and interest would be 2528.
All right, so just from the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks maybe, since you got pre-approved, your principal and interest has gone up by $500. That's the cost of waiting for you so far.
Okay. You think it's going to keep going up?
Absolutely. I mean, the Fed's announced several interest increases. And yes, we've gone down a couple of times in the last few weeks, but not significantly to put a dent in that difference for you. We've heard it said that it's supposed to hit 9% by the end of the year. Now, whether there's any truth to that or not, if I were you, I would not take that risk.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about you, Laura, you know this app so well. Like you knew exactly what to tell me. Like click the down arrow button under the mortgage payment, right? Like when I heard that as a consumer, I knew that this wasn't just like a little gimmick. Like this was a tool that is like legit, that she knows, and she's a professional. So just if you don't know your tools like that, and this goes for this or Brivity or anything, right? If somebody asks you, well, you know, like, well, I didn't get that listing alert you sent me, and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like that doesn't sound like a professional, guy. So like get into your tools. Sorry, Laura, back to you.
No, you're fine. So normally what we've been hearing after that, it's like, oh yeah, I see that. But what about if the houses do drop prices, go down in price? So tell me that.
Yeah, I get that, Laura, and that's all good. But I mean, the prices are going to drop. The house prices are going to drop. So I'm just going to wait for that.
Okay. And you said you expect them to go down 10%, right?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So at 500,000, that 10% would be 450,000. So let's assume that actually does happen.
Okay.
Go ahead and plug in 450,000 sales price, but because you waited, now interest rates are at 9%. Let's look and see what that does to your situation.
Oh, I see what you mean. So now my principal and interest is going to be $28.97.
So $28.97, which is $370 roughly, higher than if you went and bought right now.
Okay.
So Adelina, all I'm giving you is the tools to make an informed decision. The decision is all yours. I want you to know that I will back you and support you in whatever decision you make. I just want to give you the tools to make an informed decision that is financially responsible for you and your family right now. The timing, that's yours to decide on, but I just don't want me to be the reason you didn't make a good financial decision.
Gosh, that's good. That's good. That's good, Laura. I hope everybody got that. It's recorded in case you didn't. I know you guys definitely listen back to these recordings like your life depends on it, right? Laura, anything else? Because that was really good.
So the only other, so that was part 1 and 2 for buyers. Part number 3 for sellers, it's really just a little bit more simple. So now I'm going to switch you to being a seller. So Adelina, let's say that you priced your home based on the market of 3 to 6 months ago, when rates were at 4.5%. Now, those buyers were looking at a certain price range, right? In your case, $500,000. But now, because of interest rates changed, the change in interest rates, your buyer pool has changed. Remember, rates went up, salaries didn't. People didn't get bonuses. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I like that. Rates went up, salaries.
Yeah, so rates went up, which means the people that could only afford that $500,000, that $500,000 house at, say, $2,100 a month principal and interest payment, just because the interest rates changed and now that same house is costing $2,600 a month in principal and interest, doesn't mean that person can afford it. So your demographic changed. If you want to check those facts with me, you can pull up that calculator that I shared with you a while back, and you can plug in what price point at 6.5 is able to afford a $2,100 mortgage right now. And I believe it's roughly $400,000. So your demographic went back. Now you're targeting buyers that make less money and that have less savings, because historically, if someone is shopping for $2,200 a month, they're in a different category than someone who can afford a $2,700 payment. Would you agree with me?
I would. What does that mean for me?
And so what that means for you is that you're not going to have the same level of buyers that you did 2 and 3 months ago, that were fighting to pay above asking price, that were fighting to just get into your house. So we need to get ahead of the market. We need to get ahead of that and price according to the change, so that you don't feel that change in demographic pool of buyers for you.
When you say get ahead of the market, what is it that it's going to take, do you think?
I believe we need to price at least at $450,000.
Got it. Okay. So I love the confidence that you're bringing. I feel very like calm when you are giving me this really kind of difficult information to have to process right now, right? Because my hopes and dreams for what I thought I was going to get, you kind of shattered them, but in a very calm Latino way.
Well, and the thing that I want my sellers to understand is the sky is not falling, but changes are happening, and we have to adjust with them if we are not wanting to sit on the market month after month after month, just waiting for something that's no longer a thing.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. Awesome. Love that, man. Rates went up, salaries did not. Remember that. That is a really good quick line. Love that. Know your tools. Dang, Laura, I wouldn't have pegged you for a tool, like being like the best at this. You're really good. I love that. I love that. All
Like
right.
being right.
No, you are bright. You are a free spirit as well. So that's why a lot of times what I hear is my free spirits on our teams, they're like, yeah, but I mean, like I win through personality. And I'm like, well, that's great. And tools don't care about your personality. Like they need to be used one way or another. Cool. Got it. Sarissa, good morning. Did you do drop off?
Yes, I sent him in there a little early. I was like, can you guys take him a little early? Cool, thanks, we're good. Okay, I heard a couple of things today, and luckily it's like perfectly spot on to where I was going to go today. I heard us say that a lot of people don't survive tough markets. A lot of real estate agents don't survive tough markets. I also heard Brandon say there's opportunity in every market. I also heard Laura say we have to increase our skills of the tools that we have at our disposal and just make sure we're experts at that. And if that was Elizabeth and her team with Jesus and Michael, her assistant, they've already closed like 12 million plus this year. And Elizabeth said to me, so she's great, right? But she said to me, holy crap, I have not had to negotiate in years. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. If our number one agent in Dallas feels like she needs to skill up on negotiations, here I go. Like I've got to skill up the whole team, right? So this is not a negotiation conversation right this minute, but if you want to do something in the third quarter that will benefit you and your client immensely and cause you to win more often, then I would suggest putting negotiations on your, how to grow this quarter. And if anyone wants to jump in with the Dallas team, we are in the midst of reading Never Split the Difference again, because I haven't read it in like 4 years, but we are from 9 to 9:15 on Wednesdays, right after our huddle. We're just staying on our morning power up for like 15 more minutes to discuss a chapter. So if anyone wants to catch up, we are doing chapter 3 this week. So you're not too far behind if anyone wants to do that with us. So you'll have to read the intro, chapter 1 and 2 and 3, and then we're talking about that. But I'd also be interested in what other tactics or books you guys are reading to skill up on negotiations. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about today is another skill. Who knows why Ben ultimately created Brivity back in the day?
Transaction management, TC.
Okay, yep, that's a very good reason. And he said he noticed a gap, if you will, in the market because of what? Does anyone remember?
Was that seller communication?
Yep,
Automation?
sellers did not know what they did. Go Adelina.
I'm like, oh my God, that was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, he said sellers did not understand what they were getting for the fees they were charging, that we were charging. And so he wanted to create transparency in the transaction. And who has had a listing that takes longer than a month to sell ever? Like most of the people on this team most people have not, right? But there's a handful that have. Most people don't know what to do if a house stays on the market 8 days. They're freaking out, okay? So we have to really get clear on what a longer term marketing strategy looks like and increase our communication in times of uncertainty. So number one, obviously increasing our communication up front on, like Laura said, what's it going to take to really be in the market and to capture the buyer pool that you're looking for, number one. And then after the first weekend, when we're used to having multiple offers and we never had to use the transparency and Brivity because we're like, who cares? It's under contract, moving on. Like now we have to go, okay, what's our longer term strategy? And so some things that I used to do was I set a time every single week to communicate with my sellers. And it was time blocked on my calendar ahead of time that this is the window, and they knew I was going to call them every week at this time. And it allowed me to get through the weekend of open houses and capture feedback. It allowed me to look at our showing time data. Do you guys use showing time in your markets instead of centralized showing service now? Okay, it allowed me to go in and see, okay, what does the showing time data say? We got 4 showings. Other people in our price point, the average was 6 showings. Like we're not doing quite as well. It allowed me to go into MLS and say, hey guys, our home didn't sell, but these 2 did go under contract. Here's why I think they did. It allowed me to look at new active listings and say, hey, before we were the number 1 or number 2 most pretty home in this market, we were winning the beauty competition, and we just aren't anymore. There are 2 other homes that I think from a first impression show better, and we no longer are the cutest one that people want to come see. And so what other things? So I was able to show them what is selling, what other homes we're doing as far as showing time data, and really eliminate the drama of them thinking I'm not doing my job. And then I would always remind them of the NAR stats, National Association of Realtors stats, that every 10 showings, we should have an offer. And if we don't, we're at least 5% overpriced. We have to adjust quickly in this market. And that if showings have just altogether stopped, we're probably at least 10% overpriced. I would also at that time, maybe at the week 1, week 2 mark, throw the listing back at your teammates and say, would you do me a favor and just look at this and I'll return the favor. See if your teammates see anything that you should be doing different. We don't need to show all 40 pictures that were taken. We need to show the best to get people through that house. Eliminate the pictures that don't actually show it in the best light. They're going to see it when they get in the house, but we need more people in the house to get more feedback. Send your teammates through the house. If you're like, they're just not listening to me, guys, my sellers aren't listening. Send your teammates through to give written feedback. Hey guys, sorry, there was a musty smell, or it smells like dog pee, or it doesn't look organized. Take your sellers through the competition. Get them in the car. Homes used to sell so fast, we didn't have to do this, but go get your sellers in the car and let them see what people are shopping for and what people might buy instead of theirs. It might help them to see, holy crap, I do need to clean it before I leave for for work in the morning, or or whatever. But I just think in general, having that weekly communication and showing them the same things each week so that they understand, and then really using that transparency feature in Brivity and document everything you're doing in Brivity so they can't say they don't know what's going on.
I love
Cool.
that. We have, we've gone away from like needing that, right? For years and years and years, because the market didn't dictate that. Guess what? The market dictates it again. And how we show up is dictated by the market. So we could put our head in the sand, or we could show up like leaders right now, which is exactly the message. Brandon, you had something to add to Sarissa.
Yeah, over communication has been a theme. So thanks for reminding us on that, Sarissa. And as far as using tools, something I used to do when I was taking more listings, and I encourage it now, is once we're going live with these listings, I always wanted my market report for them going out Fridays, because I was calling them on Fridays. That was my time, Sarissa, in the calendar. And I would make sure that the market report's hitting in the morning so I could do the research that you were talking about, and they've already seen it. And I'm calling them on a Friday before the weekend. They probably feel good if the home hasn't sold. And then I'm looking at the market report, doing all that stuff. And then I'm calling them Friday. And when I used to have more price reduction conversations or a change or something like that, I saw that made it easier. That whole totality of circumstances of it being Friday, they already saw the report themselves. I'll let the market report from Brivity do most of the work in terms of getting them to start analyzing those numbers. And then I just call and confirm that market report. And in most cases, with a good price reduction conversation, they were just like, thanks for the help. It wasn't so, every now and then, right, you still get the upset client, which is fine. That's our job. But that helped a lot. And when I've gotten off track with that, where the report's still going out on Wednesday and I'm thinking they know I'm going to call them Friday, and they're calling me on Thursday trying to figure out, and that's a communication break. And then I'm going to them saying, hey, can you drop the price, or you probably need to have a price improvement. And they're like, what? Like, you left me hanging for a day. And it makes our jobs harder, right? So in this market, over communication, I think is going to be paramount.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, guys.
We have 1,700 homes dropping in price every week right now, with only like 2,500 coming on the market each week. And so showing them also, hey guys, like, we're not the only ones having to do this. Look at the ones, you know, that we're competing against that just dropped in price. So having that at least weekly is great.
I love that. You guys, basically what you guys said is this is a beauty contest and a price war all at the same time, right? Beauty contest and a price war. And this is going back, I think my first radio show that I did, like, it was probably like 2009. Like, I remember saying this line in 2009, and here we are in 2022, and we get to reuse, there's nothing new under the sun. You guys set it up. Here's what I had for today. If you want to take notes, I wrote down my notes, so I'm just gonna like go through it really quick because we're running short on time. And jump in at any time, Sarissa, Laura, Brandon, to add to the conversation. So June inflation numbers came out yesterday. Inflation hit 9.1%. That is the highest in 40 years. So what that tells us is we're not going to be out of the woods of this kind of market for the next 2 years. Like, our best shot of like another like fun market is going to be like 2025. So like, make the decision today that you're in it to win it, right? So right now, what that would mean is you want to lean into the brilliance of the entire group, like your own teams, the Texas region, Place International, and then play all in, right? Like, that's going to be really, really important. If you're like 50% in, you are going to not be in business. So let me see. Okay, so I got in business in 2005, just as the market was getting ready to crash and burn. That was really super exciting. And I sold 28 homes my first year, and I did it through open houses and Sphere, right? Those are my lead gen levers. And here's the thing. I made a lot of money, 6 figures. I've never not made 6 figures. So 6 figures in 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like all these bad years did not dictate my income. Does that make sense? Like, make sure that you're aware of that. So what I want to share with you is, in this market, you have to be what I would call like an investigator. And what that means to me is the way you are approaching comps for a seller. We're going to talk sellers right now really quick. The way you approach comps for a seller in this market is different from the last market. You guys already know that. Here's what I mean. Closed properties don't matter as much as pending properties and the actives that you're competing against today. So let's say I have a newer home. So like write this case study down. Say I have a newer home, say 2,400 square feet listed at 550. Now, in the past, I would just be like, well, like what's sold, what's pending, and like how high can I take this thing? Today, you got to put in a different hat. You got to put on your hat that says I'm a buyer or I'm a buyer's agent. And when I pull up homes in a 3-mile radius that are newer, that have 2,000 plus square feet, I've got 11 options right now, right? So I'm looking at like, how do I compare against those 11? Not what sold yesterday, what sold the day before. Supply has changed that, right? So here's questions I would ask myself. Write these questions down. Based on that, am I going to be the highest priced? Am I priced in the middle? Am I priced at the bottom? What about price per square foot? Am I high? Am I middle? Am I low? How many of the competitors that I'm competing against in those 11, how many of those are new builds and they're ready to occupy it in the next 90 days? We used to like poo-poo on that and be like, oh, it's not gonna be ready for like 6 months. No, builders are putting their new builds in the MLS now and they are ready to go. And given a choice, buyers like new builds because nobody's lived in them yet. So how many are you competing against that are new builds? That's gonna matter. Another question. Will my price cause me to have 2 to 3 showings a week? Because if you're not getting that much, you're going to be dead in the water. You got to have people come through your house. And then you would go back and you'd identify how many have pended in the last 30 days. How many have pended in the last 30 days? That's one of the most powerful questions you want to ask and investigate. Because when you pull the homes comparable to yours that pended in the last 30 days, and you look and you see 2 have pended in the last 30 days, and we've got 11 available, that's called absorption rate, right? So 11 available homes, only 2 pending every month. That means you've got 5.5 months of inventory in that pocket that you're looking in. That is not ideal, right? And so here's what you want to, what do you want to do? You got to throw out your mindset that you are priced well. I keep hearing from my team, oh, I need feedback because we're priced so good, but we're not getting showings. And I'm like, no, you're not priced good. If you were priced good, you would have sold, right? And so you got to throw out the mindset that you're priced well, right? Comps don't matter at that point. Being priced well means that you're one of the next 2 to sell. Because you know that 2 sell every 30 days, what's going to cause you to sell in the next 30 days? How do you become one of those 2? That's the conversation. That's the mindset that you're having. Your job as a listing agent is to think like a buyer right now. What is the buyer going to be looking at? Realistically, they're going to not just be looking in your neighborhood. I know it's a beautiful neighborhood, but they're going to be looking at a 3, 4, 5 mile radius based on that. What's out there? They're taking the what's the best value approach, right? It doesn't mean that if you're the highest price, you're not going to sell. That's not what it means. If you're the highest price, if your condition, location, everything matches that, and you're the best value, high five, right? And then the other thing I wanted to take you back. I'm going to show you a video, and this is my favorite video ever. Now, it was back in 2013. So 2013 audio and video sucked. Why I'm telling you is because I want you to really focus. You're going to miss it if you don't focus on this video. Who knows Joel Rico? Yeah, all right. Joel Rico was on at Mega Camp, and he took us through this exact conversation. And I promise you, if you do this, it will absolutely change your listing game for the next 2 years. You're going to be sitting pretty. You're probably going to be a panelist on here because we're going to be like, wow, somebody did what we told them to do, right? So let me take you through, let me show you what I mean. All right, let's see.
So Gary, thanks for having me over. Yeah, I'm excited to get you to, let's say this or something. Athens. So I'm excited to help you move to Athens so you can be closer to your son. Absolutely. Yeah, glad to hear it. Yeah. So, Gary, I'm curious, when you bought this house, how many houses did you look at before you bought this one? 4 or 5. Oh, So of the 4 or 5 that you looked at, how did you choose this one? Okay, we chose it because they had cool fires. Awesome, had a cool fire, so you were attracted to the design fireplace. So how was how was this house priced compared to the other 5 that you looked at? In the middle, at the top, at the bottom, or was it top? Near the bottom. Great. So what was about this house in particular? I mean, obviously you like fireplace. What was here that you were willing to pay above market for this house? The location. Okay, so of the houses that you looked at, this one had a special location for class of its own. And so you were willing to pay more money because the location merited more money. Do you think you got a good deal about this house? Yeah. So the buyers that are going to buy your house are going to do the same thing. They're going to comparison shop. They're going to look at several houses. They're going to compare. They're going to find what they like. And they're going to buy the one that they think is a good deal for what they're receiving. That makes sense. Great. So just for fun, let's pretend that you're buying another house and your house is not for sale. I'm your broker and we're going to find you a house in this neighborhood. And we want a house just like this house. So we want a house that's 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and 3-car garage and pool. You want it right there around the golf course, right? Just like this house. Your house is not for sale. Okay, so here's the 5 that I would show you, and I can't 5 or 6 or whatever it is. So here's the 5 that I would show you. So take a few moments and take a look at that. Familiarize yourself with that. Okay. Okay, so if you were going to buy a house, if you were in market to buy, which of those 5 would spark your interest? House number 3. And I've got 2. So what was it about house number 3? Fireplace. Okay. Price. Like what's the price right? This number, what does that say? 5, some number. No, like I can't do a real CMA. What's this number right here? Yeah, 14,000. Great. And then right below it, what's another number that says GLA, based on market. So how long is the house been sitting? So they're asking 400, and it's been sitting there for 52 days. Okay, so if this was a house for you, what do you think that house is really worth? 52 days and not sold. What do you think it's really worth? Agreed. How much less? I don't know. Okay, well, if you were going to make an offer on that house, what kind of offer would you make? Well, I would look for you to tell me. Okay, maybe 2,000. So that house is worth maybe 390, and we might write an offer a little lower, and maybe pay as much as 390. Fair enough. Okay, so here's the big question: what price should we list your home so it sells for $4,000?
Okay, so I'm gonna get this to you guys because it is probably harder to hear across the board. But I typed up all the questions that he asked to lead to that conversation. This is a lead-in conversation where he goes through and he says, "Hey, listen, when you bought this house, how many houses did you look at? 5. Awesome. How did you choose this house? What'd you like about it? Oh, I love the fireplace. Great. How was it priced? It was priced on the higher side. What about it caused you to pay more money for it?" And he's like, "Well, I really like the location." And then he said, "Okay, let's pretend just for fun, you're buying another house, and your house, it's not for sale. We want to buy a house just like this. Your house is not for sale. Here are the 5 that are really, really awesome. And I want to show you. Take a few moments and look at those 5. And these are your comps that you're bringing with you that are active on the market." And then he asked, if you were to buy a house, which one of those would spark your interest? And he said, house number 3. What is it about house number 3? Oh, I like the fireplace. Great. How long has this house been on the market? 52 days. Okay, so they're asking 400,000. It's been on the market 52 days. What do you think it's really worth? I mean, it's been sitting for 52 days. What do you think it's really worth? And he says, oh, I don't know, 390. He's like, oh, okay, 390. So we're going to write an offer for probably 380 and pay no more than 390, right? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, great. So here's the big question. What price should we list your house so that is the next one to sell? what price should we list your house so that it's the next one to sell? And Gary would have said 389.9, right? And so that is the lead in to the conversation to get a buyer to make their decision. What you'll hear in this when you listen to it, it's the shortest 7 minutes video ever. I'll post it here in chat in just a second. But the next conversation that they have is, why would we want to have this conversation? Number one, let's say Brandon and I, we were at a listing appointment and I said, Brandon, your number is 400,000. And if it sells in a day, does Brandon feel like I was awesome? Maybe. He
You
might also,
underpriced it.
there you go. He underpriced, I underpriced it. What if I say, Brandon, we do a 2-hour listing presentation, because I know some of y'all are still doing that. Do a 2-hour listing presentation. I get you to surrender to a $400,000 price point, and then it doesn't sell. It's 52 days later and it didn't sell. How do you feel about me now?
Down.
Yeah, you probably want to fire me, right? I don't think I've ever been fired by a client. So like that would be a first time for me. I think I've been fired probably by agents, like they sometimes leave my team, but like clients actually used to like me. But in this way, you take clients through the conversation and they're making the decision. They are part of that decision. Now you got to know like what's out there. You can't be bringing 20 houses for them to decide through, right? You bring the best 5, the 5 that you know you're going to compete with, and you want to make sure that they're the next one to sell. That's the premise of that. Let me go ahead and jump in and grab that, that link for you so that you can copy it and listen to it on your own. I'd love to hear if you guys use it or not. It is really smart. You guys are going to be dead in the water without doing some version of something like this. Brandon, we'll go to you.
Yeah, something along the lines of this, the listing presentation and setting expectations. Something that I think is very, very important that we all understand as agents and that our clients understand by us telling them this and talking to them about it is the market that we just kind of left. We only had to sell the house once. We only had to sell it to the buyer, right? In a normal market, and I probably got this from somebody who's on the panel here, we have to sell a house 3 times. And I love that script, right? We need to sell it to a buyer, we need to sell it to their agent, and we need to sell it to the appraiser. Well, we didn't have to do that for the last 18 months. We had waivers, escalation clauses. The agents didn't care which ones they bought. They just needed to get a buyer under contract, you know, after the gauntlet of showing them a bajillion houses and losing 50 times. Like, we're going to have to go back and understand that paradigm that, like, in our market for houses under the median price of 340, waivers went away in a week. All of a sudden on our listings, we'd still get multiples. No one was putting in waivers. Escalation clauses pretty much are non-existent. So we need to make sure that we understand that, I think, because the seller's not going to understand, because their friend a week ago, or let's say a month ago, they got paid way over. There wasn't even an appraisal that was done, right? But the buyer's agent, you know, they usually, well, whatever on that. But now what I'm talking to sellers about and what we're encouraging everyone talking to sellers about is, hey, you know, that was great a month ago, but we got to sell your house 3 times. Can I tell you why? That used to be my favorite script. That used to be because it reminded me to talk to them about potential appraisal issues on pricing. But now that's where we're at. We have to go back through that. So we can't operate while we're pricing these homes. Like you said, the solds from 6 months ago, that was with waivers and escalations and stuff. We got to, you know, kind of read between the lines a little better with the pending data. But if you didn't know that script, that's the script, right? We have to sell your house 3 times. We got to sell it to the buyer. We have to sell it to their agent and the appraiser. And that's helped in the past kind of get them to start thinking like us in a way that's going to be in their best interest and not sit, like you said, for 52 days. Then you lose either way if you're the agent, right?
Right on, right on. Sarissa, I saw your hand.
Yeah, you know, I brought up just increasing our negotiation skills, and I just want to remind us, like the whole group, we're not always just negotiating with the other agent. In a lot of cases, we have to use those skills with our own client to get them down the path of their preferred future. And it's in many cases the same skill set.
I love that. I love that. I love that this panel was so education based, right? Because we're all coming from a very education based like mindset to help people get to where they want to go by being able to make good decisions, sound decisions, not based on emotion only. Laura?
So one thing I wanted to add to is just, and I think I say this all the time, and you guys get tired of hearing it, but it's the importance of being solution-based and just thinking outside of the box for solutions. It'll be critical during this transition. One of the things that we heard a couple of weeks ago was how much more impactful a seller offering, say, a $10,000, $15,000 credit to use toward buying down points is versus a $15,000, $20,000 reduction in price. And that was like, whew, because all of a sudden, if you can buy 2, 3, 4 points down on your interest rate, you can afford the same house you could have afforded at 4.5%, 5%, versus $20,000 reduction in price does nothing for your payment really in the grand scheme of things. So being willing to get out of that box and being solution based and getting creative. And one of the things I loved about today's panel is I think we're all very much, we're showing a pattern of helping people walk a mile in the shoes of the other person, and just putting, like, not just telling them, hey, this is what's happening, but actually saying, hey, do this with me. Hey, let's go look at that house and see what you're competing with. So being willing to be uncomfortable and letting the client see what we're trying to tell them.
I love that. I love that. There's only one more question, so I want to make sure that we wrap up. But Andrew had asked, okay, you're going to a listing appointment and you already know that they're interviewing multiple agents and other agents are agreeing to list it at a higher price. Do you have a tactic for that? Any tips, tricks? How would you handle that if that was you? They're interviewing multiple agents, you're one of them, and they've already told you that somebody else is going to list it higher.
So for me, it would simply be, Mr. Seller, I can appreciate that you have other options and people are telling you what you want to hear. I'd rather be the agent that tells you the truth and that lets you down now versus letting you down later after your house has been sitting on the market for 3 months without any offers.
Good script. I like it. I like it. Anything else you guys would add?
Not better than that on the script. That was perfect. But the back end, like sometimes we get in those situations and it's like, well, I use that script and they still want to list higher. The way we try to look at that is if you're going to take the chance to take that higher price listing after you've set the expectation that it might or probably won't happen because it's not supported off of market data, get it built into your listing agreement, right? We're all business owners. And so if you walked them down the stats, you've gave them, that was really, I'm going to go back and listen to this video after that. That was a good script. Just get it in writing that you're going to have some expectation to make adjustments. Because if everybody's reasonable, that could still be a win-win down the road. If they're not, you might get trapped like some of us have, I have, where I thought they were going to be reasonable because they said they would and I didn't get it in writing. And then we're sitting there 60 days later at the same price. They hate me now and it's not working out.
I love that.
And Adelina, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have done where I've said this. I have said, you know, I'd rather be the agent that tells you the truth, whatever I said earlier. And then I'll say, and ultimately this is your house. If you truly are set on giving that price a try, let's try it for a week or two. And at the end of 2 weeks, let's just agree to change to my price. And because I'd rather have the listing, if it's not grossly overpriced, I'm not going to take something that's unrealistically priced just to compete. But if it's like $10,000, $20,000, then that's something I can work with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in that video that Joel Rico's doing, the second part of that is on establishing price reductions ahead of time, right? And I wrote down, you can be really super stressed in this new market. The level of stress that you have is going to be a direct correlation to how much you can get in front of things. The more proactive you can get, the more honest you can be with people on the front end. It doesn't mean that you're not going to list something that's not perfectly priced, but it is going to mean that you're going to have the Laura or the Brandon or the Sarissa conversation with them ahead of time so that there's not this like weird stress that shows up. The win is not in just taking the listing. The win is taking a sellable listing. The win is not working with a buyer that wants to see 100 houses. The win is in working with a buyer who is ready, willing, and able right now, and they want to buy a home in this market, right? So like, it's not like checking off the things that like make us feel good, because like our timeframes just got longer, right? So we could talk about this forever, and I look forward to doing that in the future. We'll see you guys at 1:30 today. For those of you coming on to Ben's 7 investments that the government wants you to make type of thing. And then Ben is on tomorrow, and then we'll see you guys next Thursday with a whole new slew of stuff. So have a great day, guys. We'll see you later. I will send this recording out shortly. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alina. Bye.
Thank you.